And Joe, I mentioned Daniel Ricciardo pitting, toward the end of the race to take away that fastest lap from Lando Norris. And if Max Verstappen, for some reason, ends up winning this championship by 1 point, I hope Daniel Ricciardo gets a special Christmas gift from Max Verstappen, because that could be crucial with the way things are looking right now. And speaking of Ricciardo, there have been plenty of rumors regarding his future in Formula One. Many believe that the Singapore Grand Prix was the final career race in Formula One for him before Liam Lawson replaces him next month at Circuit of the Americas for the United States Grand Prix. Ricciardo, if you haven't seen it yet, just type in Daniel Ricciardo on Twitter, on Google, YouTube, and that'll probably be one of the first things that will pop up. He gave a very emotional post-race interview acknowledging that today could have been the end of his Formula One career. He struggled to find the right words, but he said he put his best foot forward and lamented the fact that the fairy tale ending of him returning to Red Bull didn't happen. Joe, based on how Ricciardo reacted after the race, do you believe today was his final hurrah in Formula One? And if it was his last one, how will you remember his F1 career?
It definitely looked like this was his final hurrah, his final race in Formula One. The way everyone was treating him, the way he was acting, his interview. I would be shocked if he's still back, because I feel like, if he knew he was going to be back, I think he would have a little bit of a different tone. But knowing the situation he's in, where he just has not met the expectation over at VCARB, it really shows all signs that his time in F1 is done. Unfortunately, part of it being done is, really when it comes to what other teams he could go to, I don't see Daniel Ricciardo wanting to go to a team that's sort of more towards the back of the grid. And then, unfortunately, his time in McLaren, he did get that win, but it just seems like that was the only shining spot. Renault, that was a big gamble. It looked like it was going to pay off, but when the McLaren door opened, I really say you can't blame somebody from saying, hey, I'm going to switch over to McLaren. We know McLaren was not exactly a top level team at that point, but the prestige of driving for McLaren, if they could get their act together, they could be a race winning contending team. That just did not pan out. Overall, when it comes to his career, one of the things that's going to really stand out is his big personality. In a sport where a lot of times fans don't exactly have the access to drivers like they do in other forms of motorsports, where you have drivers where a lot of them tend to shy away when it comes to media. Just talk about the race, what the race car did, not often show raw emotion. Daniel Ricciardo did that. That big old grin he had when he arrived to the track. Look at the following he has in the United States. He loves coming to the United States. After he won with McLaren, he got to drive that old NASCAR Dale Earnhardt Chevrolet Monte Carlo at COTA doing the burnouts. That is a driver that, is having fun and bringing the fans with him. I think too often, especially in F1, we have drivers where it just almost seems like this is just a business. You go in there, you do the race, you do some interviews for F1 TV, F1 website, and then you're secluded away. You may be caught racing on iRacing or something and show a little personality, but Daniel Ricciardo had a lot of personality, and of course, Kobe, his ability for late braking, that is something where we don't see a whole lot of. We're seeing some drivers doing that here and there, but the combination of Daniel Ricciardo with his personality, his ability to late brake, and let's remember, when he joined Red Bull, he outperformed Sebastian Vettel that year. He, I think, will be remembered for quite some time for a lot of fans currently. Hopefully, we'll see him somewhere with the media, a broadcast booth, a broadcast role somewhere. It'll be really interesting to see what his future holds, or maybe another motorsport, IndyCar. He said he wants to do stock car racing in the United States. Let's see what happens.
It's definitely been quite a whirlwind of a career for Daniel Ricciardo. And also want to mention the fact that out of all of Max Verstappen's teammates, Daniel Ricciardo is the one driver who pushed Max the most. Yeah, so I think Daniel Ricciardo, like you were saying, he definitely deserves his flowers for everything he's been able to do in his Formula One career. Like you say, one of the most iconic personalities that we've seen, in recent memory. Whenever you see Daniel Ricciardo, you rarely see him looking sad. You always see him with a smile on his face. Even when he was giving that emotional interview, you could still see him, cracking a smile. He seems like one of the happiest people that there could be. out there. But yeah, based on his body language, almost tearing up to cry, it really does seem like that he's possibly been told that today might be his last or was his last race in Formula One, because they're ready to get Liam Lawson some seat time heading into next year. But yeah, I do think it's going to be his last. Unfortunately, we'll see when the official announcement, if and when the official announcement comes. But if it's not, this race, it'll probably by the end of the season that he'll be out of Formula One for good. Like you're saying, Joe, I don't really see him wanting to go to any other situation in Formula One. I think that this is probably it, and we're going to see what he's going to do with his racing career moving forward. But even if his F1 career ends, I don't think that he's going to be done in motorsports. And leading up to this weekend, I saw Daniel Ricciardo was doing some interviews in the media talking about some stuff that he liked to do in the future. Like you mentioned, Joe, he said he liked to test a NASCAR stock car potentially. Hopefully we can see him in a road course race. We'd really love to see him do that maybe in the NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinities, or even trucks. And he also said that he'd like to test a MotoGP bike because he likes that. And he also said if one of the supercars team wanted to call up and let him do a test run at Bathurst, he'd like to do that. Can you imagine getting Daniel Ricciardo competing in the Bathurst 1000 someday? That would really be huge for that event. And he also mentioned running the Bathurst 12-hour as well, going back home to Australia. Yeah, so he definitely will have his options out there. And in regards to IndyCar, he said IndyCar still scares him. So I don't think we're going to see him running the Indianapolis 500 anytime soon. But remember, in his F1 career, Adam Limber says he have lots of respect for Daniel Ricciardo, one passionate driver. You can tell how much he loves Formula One and just the entire environment around him. It's unfortunate, if this is it for him in the sport, because he's been such a great ambassador, great personality, such a beloved driver, from all sides of the world. And I think, like we've been saying, the one thing we're going to remember from him the most is his joyous personality and and all the happiness that he had on his face showing up to the racetrack. So yeah, we'll certainly miss Daniel Ricciardo if the Singapore Grand Prix was his final one.